All right, welcome back. Today we're going to format some strings like The Simpsons. We're going to be given an array with objects inside, and then we're supposed to return those names in a comma-separated list. But if there are more than two items, the last one is going to have an ampersand. So as I think about this, we're going to first want to create just an array of the names. So how do we get the values out of these objects? So names array. Then it looks like we've got kind of four different cases. No names, which is going to be our else statement. So I'm going to put that down. One name, two names, more than two names. And the way that I'm actually going to look at this, I think, is say that name is equal to last name in array. Name is equal to second to last name in array. And then name is any other. And then the reason I'm thinking about that is we're going to have kind of three different behaviors. So if we do that, if the name is the last in the array, then it's just add name. If the name is the second to last name, then it's add name and. And then if it's any other name in an array with more than, where it doesn't meet these two conditions, then I think we're going to do add name comma space. No names, return empty string. Okay, so with that, let's get started. Names is an array with multiple objects in it in theory. So let's start with let return string equal to null, well, an empty string. Let names array equal to an empty array. And then for names is an array with objects in it, and I want to just get those values back from the objects. So for let I equal to 0, I less than names.length, I plus plus. And actually, let's do this slightly differently. Names.forEach. Because we're unlike a loop down here where we're going to absolutely loop through the names array. We're doing the same thing for all of these elements. So we want to just make this a little bit cleaner and have it all in one line. Names array dot push element dot values name element dot values, I think object dot values JavaScript. So each element in our array is actually an object. So what are we saying here? We're saying that for each element in names, we're taking the element and we're running it through this function. This function pushes names array is assigned to a new push of the object of values of that element. So if we think about this list, then we're going to go, the first element is name.bart, and we're going to take the value of this element and push it to names array. That's what we're expecting, at least. So now we've got this new variable, names array, and we want to cycle through that because it's just going to be something like Bart, Lisa, Maggie, whoopsies, etc. And that's kind of our default array, which makes it easier to just think about doing the second loop of seeing what we need to do. So if names array dot length is greater than 0, then do this, else return string. And that's what we're talking about there. Okay, so now in this case, for let I equal to 0, I less than names array dot length, I plus plus. And now we've got our 3 if statements, right? So if names array of I, here let's do this. Let's say let name equal, this needs to go here. Let name equal to names array of I. Right? And then else if -2. Else and then return string. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if we get through, if we're in this if statement, and so we never get to this else statement, we're going to run through this whole for loop and then return the return string. So that's going to be our last thing. If we skip, then we just return the return string right away. And actually what that means is that we can do this. Because the outcome of going through this return string or this if statement as evaluated into true or not has the same behavior of returning the string. The only difference is that if that evaluates to true up front, we're going to have to run through this for loop. So else, let's say that return string dot concat return string is assigned to return string dot concat of, and I like this jQuery a little bit, name. So we're concatenating the name value of I with a comma and a space to return string if it's not the last or second to last character or element in the string. But that's a pretty similar pattern to what we're going to do here. The only difference is that for the last one, it's just the last name, it's just the name. And here it's space, ampersand, space. And I think that should do it. Let's run some sample tests. Okay. 41. That's not helpful. Code Warrior index. Okay, so where is my issue? Save this as simpsons.js. What I'm hoping for, okay, so looks like I was missing these are off. That's why it's hard for me to see. There we go. And this is why I like tabs. Tabs are so much simpler. Run sample tests. Okay. Object.values is not a function. Okay, so that's correct. What did I do wrong? Okay, so it's the forEach. forEach So I've got arrays within arrays, which I don't think is what I want. Yeah. Well, certainly hard to evaluate if the name is equivalent to something if it hasn't been set. The name is an array though, so what happens if I do that? Nope. But I can do it here, I think. Okay, so those are some minor tweaks. Cruising right along. So the issue was that we want setting names array to this was not what I was looking for, and I also needed to make sure to take the 0th element of the value, which was coming out as an array within array, which was going to mess things up, and then this is in the wrong place. So now let's run our sample tests. Still failing. Pretty sure this is a function. Okay, maybe not. Hold on. So once again, we are at a bit of a standstill where they don't like this. The element is an object. So what if I just do I don't think that's going to work. Okay, so the element is an object, which means that it's element.values, right? And the key is name. So what I actually want to do is push element.name. And that should work. So let's just test it here locally first. Okay. Yeah, that worked the way that I'm expecting. And then run my sample tests. All right. So some gotchas in this one. Object.values is what I was looking for, but I need to name the object, and then I can specify the values that I'm looking for based on the key. If I don't do that, then, well, in this particular case, there's only one value, or one key, excuse me. And so I'm making an array full of these. If the object had been more complex, you probably still want to specify the key, because one of the values of an object is that you can see the difference in, like there is that key value pairing in an array. If you pulled all of the values without the context, then you wouldn't really know what you're looking for and you lose the value. So my names array is all of the elements names side by side. So we know that everything in that array is names. And then other gotchas. One that I struggled with earlier was I can't just do names array of -1 and names array of -2, which would be a -1 index and a -2. It was not evaluating the way that I was expecting, so names array dot length worked well and just doing some basic arithmetic. So let's see what happens. It looks like I passed. Cool. Thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.